So I mean, how's this week gonna go for you?
This week's gonna go great.
Yeah, you gonna get some more money out of Mima?
Yep.
Yeah, how? How you think you gonna do that?
Through more call bribes.
Do more call bribes. So basically, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna call, or she'll call me or something like that. Then I'll be like, "Hey, Tiny, hang up," right? And you'll be like, "No, let me bribe me or something like that. Let me get some bribes." Tell me more about that.
Well, I think it's a really good and easy money-making tactic.
I mean, it's kind of messed up. You're like kind of taking your grandmother, right? And you're like, "Hey, give me money. And if you don't give me money, I'll let your son, which is me, which is your father, hang up on you." It's basically what you're doing, right? All right, that's cool. I mean, I have no problem with that. I mean, she may have a problem with that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all right. Well, first off, all right, so. Start with love. I love you.
I love you a little bit more.
I love you a little bit more. I love you more. Give me a hug.
No, people pop shop.
Give me a hug. Is that what we're gonna do? Right here? You're just gonna play me? Give me a hug.
All right then.
Aw. Everyone just saw how I forced this little kid to give me a hug. That's crazy. But anyways, this is our podcast, right? This is our first podcast. This is the very first episode. Hello, and welcome everybody to our very first podcast, very first episode of the Tiny and ToneZ podcast, a podcast where a son and a father talk about life, games, and everything in between. I'm your host, the dad, obviously, because I'm older than him just by a little bit, ToneZ, and this is my wonderful, great, amazing son, Tiny, who will not stop scratching his arm. I don't know what's going on with it. I think he might have poison ivy or something like that. We might have to go get that checked out, right?
Yep.
Oh, all right. Well, that's okay. So, how's everything? How's your day going?
My day's going great, Jim.
Oh, I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. What have you done today?
Well, today I recently just finished The Last of Us Part 2, and I don't think it deserved the Best Game Award.
Dang, you're just running through all of our topics. We didn't even get there yet. But yes, people, as you probably already know watching this podcast, that there were Game Awards and there were Game Award winners, like in regular award shows, and there were Game Award losers. And we will not dive into all the winners and the losers, but we will get to The Last of Us 2, Part 2, wherever it's called, and if they've won, if they deserved it, I don't know. What do you think? We're not talking about that yet. Don't care what you think. All right? We're not getting to that right now.
Wow, sir, that is very mean.
Yeah, I know, but you kind of have to have some sort of conflict if people are going to watch it and everything like that. I mean, we're really great, right? We don't really have too much conflict with each other. This is just manufactured conflict for the viewers and the viewing pleasure. Well, thank you very much. So our first topic, right? A game that's very near and dear to me. Well, at least at one time it was very near and dear to me. One iteration of it. I'm talking about Smash Brothers. Now, me personally, I would consider myself a Super Smash Brothers Melee professional. I'll tell you why. Because I went to tournaments. I've competed in tournaments. Did I win any? We're not going to talk about that. But I did take it very seriously at a point in time. And the new iteration came out probably like a couple years ago, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, right?
That was a year ago.
About a year ago. And they had some news over the weekend, and they did but they premiered a new character. Who was that character, and do we care about it?
It was the Sephiroth from the Final Fantasy VIIs.
All right, interesting. And do we care about that?
Well, I think you would care about it because it's the best RPG and the best game to you. So
Yeah. No, not just to me. Let's just make this clear. Final Fantasy VII is the best game of all time, the best JRPG of all time, which is Japanese RPG of all time, and it affected my life immensely. It was the first game that I did a lot of things in that I'm not going to talk about right now. I may have cried, not sure. Everyone knows that particular scene. And this is important because if I'm not correct, I believe that this is the first time a DLC character has his villain in it. We're talking about Cloud. He's from Final Fantasy VII, obviously, and Sephiroth is the main antagonist of that game. Now I'm not saying that Donkey Kong has his villain that was DLC, but I'm talking about a specific. I'm not talking about Nintendo properties or games that were even on any Nintendo systems. So, how do we feel about this? You said.
well, currently, I don't really care. I think they should have put in someone else from the Final Fantasy series, like Zidane or just anyone from Final Fantasy 9. The best JRPG and the best game of all time.
The best game of all time? Final Fantasy 9 is the best game of all time?
Yes.
Hot take, people. You've heard it here first. This little kid thinks that Final Fantasy 9 is the best game of all time. I would say it's probably the third best Final Fantasy, maybe the second best depending on what day it is, if I want to like Final Fantasy 10 or not. But as you can see how he's looking at me, everybody, he feels strongly about Final Fantasy 9, which is perfectly fine because I encourage my son to have his own opinion. But he will hear me about his own opinion 100%. Now, could you back up why Final Fantasy 9 is the best game of all time?
Well, that would be a little bit of off top. Well, that would be a little off topic. So.
You're absolutely right. So that's another topic for another podcast. That was actually pretty great because today, folks, we actually have a heated debate in which we always go through, which is the best game of all time, in which I'm pretty sure you guys will be surprised where he thinks the best game of all time falls onto. Now, moving along, we'll get to that topic eventually. Actually, not moving along because I didn't even say how I felt about Sephiroth being in Smash Brothers. I feel like I said before, I feel like it's important because this is the first time that a DLC character from a whole, not only just another universe, but a whole nother system, a game that was on a whole nother system, has his counterpart, has his protagonist, his antagonist. And this is important. This is important for relationships between companies, between Nintendo and its, and subsidiaries, Nintendo and its, its friends and everything like that, and the companies in which they work with. This comes from a place in which Square Enix wouldn't even let Nintendo use more than 2 songs from Final Fantasy VII. Now we have another character from Final Fantasy VII. Mind you, I think also Final Fantasy VII has the best soundtrack in any video game of all time. But as you can see from how he's looking at me, he doesn't think so, which is perfectly fine because I love his opinions. But we'll get to that. Also, I think that did you see the gameplay of Sephiroth?
Yeah, I did with one of my friends.
How do you feel about it? What do you think?
Well, I think he's gonna be way too overpowered. Like, have you seen the range of his sword?
I have seen the range of his sword. Now, you think that he's gonna be overpowered?
Well, yeah. You can just go on the edge and probably just do some overpowered move that affects the whole area around you. Okay.
So, how long do you think this character will be overpowered for?
Maybe a month or 2.
Okay, all right. Do you think his overpoweredness will eventually affect the leaderboards? And number one, I don't even think Smash Brothers has leaderboards. Nintendo adopted this particular ideology where they don't want to make anyone feel bad, so they don't track things like that. But it will affect tournaments and stuff like that depending on when they start again. So do you think it'll affect that type of stuff?
Maybe if his moves are good.
Okay.
I guess.
How? Negatively or positively?
Positively.
How so? You have to elaborate on these type of things.
Oh, wow, this is just like writing a school essay.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you have to be interesting to our viewers. All right, moving along. So we'll get back to that at another time. All right, so moving along. The Game Awards was this weekend, correct?
Yes.
Or last weekend, or this week, or something like that. And there were winners, and there were losers. Yet the most coveted award, right? I think this also was the game that won the most awards. Was what game? I think we talked about it earlier.
The Last of Us Part 2.
Okay, all right. So what did that win? What was the most coveted award that they won?
Well, I think they got Best Game of the Year award and Best Music, I think.
Okay, all right. Do you agree with that?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay. Personally, I didn't play the game. I played the first Last of Us a couple of years ago. I think it was 2013 when it came out. Not sure. Someone fact checked me on that. But I think that's when the game came out.
Yeah.
And it was 2013. Mm-hmm. There you go. See, it's like a lock. It's like a bank, right? Oh my God, it's like a safe. Get information in there, and it stays in there once it's in there. But we'll talk about this at another time. But all right. So I played that back in 2013. I actually went to a midnight release with my boy Ant Green, AG Live. Shout out to you, by the way, in his podcast. I think it's called The Least Favorite Podcast or something like that, or The Least Favorite Podcast. So shout out to y'all. I actually went to a midnight release with him. So hyped for the game because it's produced, developed by Naughty Dog. And I was a big Uncharted fan. I'm like, oh man, this game's supposed to be like an Uncharted version of Resident Evil or Silent Hill. Where could they go wrong? And that, to me, was their Achilles heel. It was too much like things I've played before and movies I've watched. It's too much like not Assassin's Creed. It was too much like Metal Gear Solid. It was too much like Uncharted. The storytelling, it was too much, and the set pieces, not exactly the set pieces, but the big grandioso action pieces, action scenes. It was too much like Resident Evil, too much like Walking Dead. It felt like it was a Frankenstein for everything that was in pop culture at that particular time, and I wasn't with it. I didn't like it too much. I know that it's an acclaimed game. It won Game of the Year when it came out, I believe. All my friends except AG Live, actually. Shout out to you again. Love it. It's heralded. Did you play that game?
Yeah, I finished it like 2 months ago.
Okay. What do you think about it?
Well, I think it deserved to win Game of the Year in 2013 because it's really good. I just don't know what, like.
Look at the camera. Stop fidgeting.
I don't know how it's good, but somehow it just was good to me. I don't know if it was the gameplay or the story.
Okay, all right. You just liked it.
Yes.
Sounds good. All right. So, what do you think about Last of Us Part 2 winning Game of the Year?
Well, I think that also deserved Game of the Year because it was a kind of like the Metal Gear Solid 5 to the Uncharted franchise.
Okay, all right. And what does that mean?
That means it kind of reinvented the gameplay. Now you can go pro, you can throw bottles at people and make clickers attack them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You couldn't do that in the first one?
No.
Oh, I thought you could do that in the first one. Oh, see, I don't even remember what's going on in that first game.
Yeah, me too.
So that sounds pretty cool. So, you think it should have won Game of the Year? You don't think any game this year came out that could have possibly beat it?
No. Well, the nominees, I haven't played one. I thought both of them were kind of garbage, so. Okay,
all right, I got you. I think it was like Hades. I know my friends are really like into that game. I never really got into it. What else? Final Fantasy VII Remake, which we're not going to talk about that. It was my biggest gaming disappointment of all time is Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's horrible. It was Final Corridor Fantasy VII Remake trash. Ugh, horrible. So I'm not sure. I can't really give you an objective, any objectivity. If this was the Game of the Year, for the simple fact that the only game this year that I really played was Warzone, damn near every day. Overwatch 2, I played that a lot, but once I really got into Warzone, like I really got into Warzone, right? Really got into Warzone. So I can't really talk about that. Did you watch the Game Awards?
No, I think I fell asleep.
Well, then, there you have it. You heard it here first. Don't watch the Game Awards, guys. It's crap. So, on to our biggest topic, right? Most major topic, the one that we always have a debate on every time you wake up, every day we're together. We have a debate on this because you think this is the best game of all time. And I don't know if I agree with that. So, what game is this? Tell the people. Tell all of our viewers what you think the best game of all time is.
The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask is the best Zelda game of all time.
Is it the best game of all time?
No, it's kind of far away from being the best game of all time.
Okay, all right. No, that's cool. I understand that. That's a stretch, right? I think that's a stretch saying that that's the best game of all time. Or the best Zelda game of all time, excuse me. I think actually it's on the bottom half of Zelda games. I think there's many Zelda games that go above that. In particular, Ocarina of Time. Like, I don't understand usually when we're talking about not only best Zelda games of all time, best games of all time, Ocarina of Time is usually brought up. For the past however many years, I think that game came out in like 2006. For the past 24 years, that game since its release, has been heralded as the best game of all time. So, what makes Majora's Mask not only better than Ocarina of Time, but what makes that the best game of all time? I really want to pick your brain about this.
Well, it's the best Zelda game of all time because of the side quests and masks and and collectibles in the form of masks. I can't speak any day. And the time system was really great. It makes you plan ahead and focus on what you want to do each day.
Okay, all right. So explain to us, explain to me, explain to anyone who hasn't played that game yet. Explain to them what the plot is, please.
The plot is so you're just riding around on your horse, and then Skull Kid attacks you. Mm-hmm. He has a weird looking mask on, and then you fall into Termina.
Okay.
Where you have 3 days, or actually no, infinite days to stop the moon from crashing down.
Okay, you have infinite days, correct?
Yes. Infinite
days, but I thought the whole point was you have 3 days, and if you don't turn back time, because apparently it's a time travel game, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't turn back time, then a big, ugly moon just crashes down, and there's a big, gory scene where everybody just dies, and then you, like, die, but you're not dead, and everything like that, or whatever. And you feel really sad as a player that you just let all these people die, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like a strong emotional tie to the game, right? Like it's like one of those games where you make choices for people. It's like a Fallout or any good Bethesda game. You make choices, and then like your choice is like, hey, I don't want to kill this person, even though it's an an NPC. That's a non-player character, and it just kind of forces you to feel feelings for these non-player characters. That's the type of emotions that this game elicits, correct?
Yes, that's correct, Jim.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And that's why that game is good, because it elicits a certain type of emotion?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, explain that.
Well, it elicits a certain type of emotion from all the characters. They feel more alive and fleshed out than that garbage, boring Ocarina of Time where Link just waves his hands.
Okay, all right.
You do stuff for everyone in Termina, and you don't really want them to die a fatal death of the moon crashing into them.
Okay, so if I tell you that I feel like that's not the best game of all time, not even the best, it's not even the best top whatever, It's not the top 3, top 5 Zelda games of all time. What would you say? Number one, I feel like obviously Ocarina of Time is better than Majora's Mask. That's just obvious. And that is actually number 2 and number 3 on my Zelda list. Number 1 is Breath of the Wild. I mean, we could try to put Ocarina of Time on the top just for nostalgia because we played it when we was kids, when we was in middle school. I played it when I was in middle school. I used to pretend like I was Link walking home throughout the forest, and I used to take up a stick and pretend. Yeah, I used to do that. But, you know, even with all those nostalgic memories, you can't ignore the masterpiece that Breath of the Wild is today. Just better than almost... It just does everything better than most games, and especially most Zelda games. So that's number 1. Number 2, it kind of depends. That's, you know, this everything is kind of subjective, right? Nothing is really objective, but yeah, number 2 could be Wind Waker or Ocarina of Time. I feel probably it's Wind Waker. Number 3 is Link to the Past, and 4 is probably Ocarina of Time. 5 is I really like Oracle of Seasons. Oracle of Seasons for the Game Boy Color, great game. You know, it fits my aesthetic for Red. I picked Pokemon Red. That was my game. So why is Majora's Mask better than these games that does what Majora's Mask did better?
Well, I believe that nothing is better than Majora's Mask. Well, nothing in the Zelda franchise, at least. Mm-hmm. Because it's more fun to just play around with and explore.
Mm-hmm. I remember you talked about these masks. Now, what did these masks do? Like, did they have any sort of like function to them, or you just collect them and put them up on a wall?
Well, it's kind of both. Uh-huh. Some masks are just used for quests. Others just make you go faster, and just cosmetic.
Okay.
But the 3 main masks is really fun to play around with, especially the Zora mask.
What do they do? 3 main masks. What is that?
The 3 main masks, the Deku Scrub, the Goron, and the Zora,
mm-hmm.
both are very unique.
All are very unique since we talk about 3, but that's fine. They're all very unique. How?
The Deku Scrub is fast, but its attack... Actually, no, its attack doesn't suck.
Okay.
It's actually really good for one-hit enemies.
Okay, all right.
The Goron is big, and that's about it. That one's... I don't really use that one.
Can't you, like, roll around in that and, like, be really fast and rolling and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Got you. What else? And Zora mask, right?
Yep, the Zora mask.
What's that about?
So, just paint a picture. You walking into Great Bay.
Okay.
And then you have the Zora mask. Just go in the water.
Mm-hmm.
You can do dolphin jumps.
Get out of here. Word?
Yeah.
Dolphin jumps. Why would I want to do a dolphin jump?
Because it's cool. And he has a guitar.
Oh, I got guitars. All right. So that's all you had to say. You had me at guitar.
Yeah, but they kind of messed that up in the 3DS version.
How?
They made the Zora swim, just the swim that makes you go really fast when you're in the Zora form.
Mm-hmm.
They made that tie in to magic. You have to use magic to Zora swim, and there's no magic pots in the Great Bay, so that kind of sucks.
Also, they didn't compensate for the change that they made.
Yeah.
Got it. Oh yeah, that could ruin a game. So with that, you're telling me that that's the best Zelda game, even with that particular foible that they did. You're telling me that that's the best Zelda game still?
No, I'm not gonna talk about the 3DS version.
Oh, we're talking about the Nintendo 64 version that you never played.
No, I'm playing it currently.
Okay.
I just haven't.
Isn't that the harder version?
Mm-hmm.
It's like way harder, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
And I thought your generation don't like hard video games. Y'all don't like challenges, right?
No, I do like challenges sometimes.
Oh, so that's why you were playing that boss in Last of Us 2, and it was too hard for you. So what'd you do? Tell the people what you did.
So I went to the difficulty, and I put the enemies on very light.
Oh.
I put the player to very light.
Oh.
And I put the resources to very light. And then...
Very light. What is that? Is that like the easiest difficulty?
Yeah. And then I turned the brightness all the way up, so...
So you can see better?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That kind of sounds like you cheated. Did you cheat a little bit?
Well, if you make it sound... Well, that word kind of makes it sound bad.
Yeah, a little bit. It sounds like, to me, you were playing at a specific difficulty. That difficulty was too hard for you. So instead of trekking it out and just thugging it out and just, getting better at that particular portion of the game, you kind of copped out, right? Mm-hmm. You just lowered the difficulty so you could beat that part. Now, what'd you do after you beat that part? Did you raise the difficulty back up?
Yeah.
I bet you did.
Uh-huh.
I bet you did. Do you feel proud of yourself about that?
No, not really, but it was just one boss near the end of the game.
All right, that one boss near the end of the game just illegitimized everything that you did in that whole game up to that point. How does that make you feel?
It wasn't like it's the final boss. It was probably like the third final boss or something.
Was it even the final boss? It wasn't even the hardest boss, guys. It was one of the bosses that you have to do to get up to that boss, to get up to the final boss, right? So you didn't even do that on King Koopa. You did that on like Remy Koopa. You did that on like Ludwig von Koopa, basically.
I want to see you beat him then.
I could. If I played the game, if I played The Last of Us 2, right? And I just, number one, I don't play console video games. I'm PC Master Race. So you're not going to get me to do that. But if I were to do that, I would have been all right. Trust me, I would have got it.
Nah.
I promise you. So back to this topic about Majora's Mask, right? So after all the games that you've played, you still think Majora's Mask is the best game of all time?
No, I still don't think it's the best game of all time. It's probably the 11th best game of all time. But it is the best Zelda game of all time, though.
Okay. All right. The best Zelda game of all time. I respect your opinion, even though I think you're wrong. But, yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is when it comes to that. It is what it is. I'm never going to change your mind, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I want to.
Well, you'll never change my mind.
All right. Well, I love you very much. Well, we'll end with love, too, since this was a good conversation. And next week, we will be back. It'll be another episode. That'll be the second episode, actually. And do you have anything specific that you think we're going to talk about? You want to talk about?
Nuh-uh.
I mean, we could get into a deep dive or, how you feel about this remote learning situation. We could talk about that, or we could just see what's going on. We could see what pops up during the week.
All right, Jim Jum Jim.
All right, I appreciate you. You can call me Jim Jom Jim. You're still Jim Jom Jim Jr., so that's even more J's. How does that make you feel?
That makes me feel great, Sim Som Sim.
Oh, here we go now with the S's. We're going to close with love. I love you very much.
I love you very much, Peepo Poppy Shoppy.
All right, Bebo, bye, baby. Mwah.
I never agreed to that nickname.
That's perfectly fine. I didn't agree to Jim Jom Jim, whatever the heck you called me. And we will see you next week, everybody. Thank you very much. And this has been the first episode of the Tiny and Tones podcast. Everyone have a great week.
All right.